Hey friend, it's me, Miss V, the storyteller, and I am here with a good story for you. I hope you enjoyed last week's episode. If you didn't, please go back. It's called The Great Flip and Fall. So if you didn't hear it, go back and listen to it. It is a great episode. If you need a laugh, you need to listen to that. But thank you so much for tuning in each week. And please do the thumbs up thing for me and like it and share it with other people. If you know somebody that likes to hear good stories, please share and tell them about the podcast because I enjoy doing it and I want more people to hear the stories. So we're going to get into the story today. And the name of this story is called OMG. This apartment is haunted. I'm telling y'all, I have been through some stuff in my life. And this was one of those ones where I'm like, so we're going to go ahead and get started. So in my early 20s, I moved out on my own, being grown, and I got my apartment. And as I was in the apartment, it took me some time to get used to it because I was in a city that I really didn't like, but the apartment was really nice. This was my first apartment. It was really nice. And the neighbors around me, they were older people. So, the neighborhood was nice and I loved the apartment. Well, when the lease came up, it was time to renew the lease. I found out that the rent was going to go up much higher than I could afford. And so I had to find somewhere that I could afford quickly, really quickly, like within a 30-day period, because I didn't really look for anything or because I liked the apartment and my intention was going to stay. But then they was like, no, I didn't even understand that, y'all. I didn't understand why my rent went up because they didn't do anything in the apartment. Everything was staying the same, but that's how they roll. So I found this apartment. It was what I could afford. It was not in the best neighborhood. It was deeper into the city that I didn't like, and the neighborhood was suspect, but I could afford the apartment. So I decided, I'm going to stay here. I went to the rental office to get the key to pay the first and last month's rent, security, all of that. And I go in the office and there's a man sitting behind the desk and I come in and he kind of looked at me differently because we had only talked on the phone. And I sat down and he said, "Are you sure you want to move into this apartment?" He gave me a strange look and I said, "Well, to be honest, I really don't because of the neighborhood." I said, "But it's the only place that I could afford." He said, "Okay." He gave me the keys and my receipt and he said, "Call me for anything. If you need anything, call me." And as I'm walking out the door, I'm thinking, that's strange because when I got my other apartment, nothing like this had ever happened. Nobody asked me. They didn't even act like they cared. They was like, "Here, give me the money. Here, take the key back." So I proceed to go to the apartment to look around and I opened the apartment door to go in. Not to the apartment, but the door out that leads to it. It was on the second floor. So I opened the door to walk in, to climb the stairs and go to the second floor. And as soon as I stepped in, the man in the apartment, one of the apartments down below, opened the door and he said, "You moving up there?" I looked at him. He looked like a straight up landlord, not landlord, I'm sorry, drug lord. Now, I don't know what a real drug lord looked like because I've only seen him on TV, but he matched the description and he scared the crap out of me. I said, "Yes." He shook his head and he went back in. Now, it was only three people in that apartment building. It was only one person upstairs, and that was me, and there were two people downstairs. Never met the other man downstairs or other people downstairs. I go up, I go into the apartment, and I have an unease feeling, but all I kept telling myself is you could afford it. I looked around, so I made some calls and I asked some guys from church to move me. They said yes. Now, I didn't tell my family where I was moving. I told them that I was moving into an apartment, but I didn't give them their address and tell them where. Now, that should have been a red flag for a couple of my family members, but it wasn't. They didn't say anything, so I was like, cool. So on the day I moved in, the guys there moving the furniture up, and one of them pulled me to the side and he said, "Are you sure you want to move out here in this apartment?" And I was honest with him. I said, "No, not really, but it's the only place that I could afford in this short time that I had to look for an apartment." And he had a concerned look too, and he said, "Okay, all right." So they moved me in, and all the boxes got in. And before he left, he said, "If you need anything, call me." And I'm looking around like, this is the second person that said that. Are they seeing something that I'm not seeing? And I said, "Okay, thank you guys." And they left, and I go and I, get my sheets out of the box so I can, get my things together for bed. And that night, y'all, my first night, I could not sleep. I kept feeling like somebody was in the apartment. And I tossed and turned. I kept feeling like somebody was over me, looking over me. I don't know. And I tossed and turned, and I got up, I don't know how many times, looking in the kitchen, looking in the bathroom, looking in the living room, just looking around the apartment to see if I saw anybody. But I didn't. That next morning, I was so tired because I just could not sleep. I went to work and I was like a zombie. I came back home and I had that uneasy feeling again. And I tried to sleep, but I couldn't. I popped up and I said, "That's it." I called a girlfriend and I said, "Can I stay with you a couple of nights? I'm not used to being in this apartment, in this neighborhood, and I just need to get some rest because my work week is going to be extremely busy and I need to get some rest." She said, "Yeah, of course." So I went over and I stayed with her, and she said, "Well, what are you going to do about it?" And I said, "I'll get used to it. I just need to get some sleep for this week so I can work." Lying. I didn't tell her about the uneasy feeling, none of that. So on the weekend, I go back home and I'm trying to watch TV, and I feel like somebody sit on the couch, watch the TV with me. I'll go in the kitchen and get something to drink, and I feel like somebody wants a drink, and I'm walking around this apartment. I'm like, is it me? Am I losing it? So that night, I tried to get some rest. Didn't happen. I couldn't sleep again. But it was the weekend, so I made my way through it. The next night was it. I was in the bed and I literally felt like somebody was standing over me. It was that strong. And I said, "Oh my God, this place is haunted." You see it on the TV, but when you experience it, it's like a whole different level. I said, "Oh no, I paid for one person in this apartment, not two. You are uninvited guest, but I'm getting the hell out of here." I called another friend and I got up out of it. I grabbed what I could. I was like, "Can I stay with you a couple of nights? I don't know what's going on, but I can't stay here." And she was like, "Okay, sure." So I go over, and she was the right friend because I told her the feeling. I told her the truth, not like the other friend, but I told her the truth. And she was like, "Really?" I was like, "Yeah, girl, it's like a haunted movie. I felt like somebody was standing over me. I didn't see anybody." And I was like, I was praying. You know me, I prayed. I was praying and I was walking around and praying. And I was like, I don't know what, when, where, how in that apartment, but I could not get them out. She was the right person because within that week, she called in the big guns. The intercessors, let me tell y'all, I called them the big guns. They called me, and the head intercessor called me and said, "We coming over." I was like, "Come on." They came in the apartment. Let me tell y'all, they prayed all over that apartment, everywhere, every nook, cranny, inside the cabinets, underneath the cabinets, in the refrigerator, everywhere. They prayed. Let me They parade. They prayed to the point where I didn't think that I would be able to stay there. When they left, I had such a peace and a calmness that I had never had before. It was just peace. I didn't feel anything uneasily. It was just peace. That night was the first night that I slept like a baby. And from that point on, I was able to sleep. But I wasn't able to unpack. Every time I went to a box to unpack and to decorate the place, something in me just would not allow me to do so. Of course, I unpacked, the toiletries and the sheets for the bed and dishes that I might need, just the necessities. But anything else, decorating, and those boxes sat there. I mean, they just sat there. And then things changed for me. One day I'm coming out of church, Bible study, and my dad is standing there. My dad did not go to my church. My dad was standing there and he was fuming. He was hot. And I walk out and I'm looking, my eyes open. I'm like, OMG. I was like, hey, what are you doing there? My voice is shaking. I'm like, I'm a grown woman, but I'm scared. And he said, so you moved into an apartment, but you didn't tell anybody where you moved. And I looked at him and I'm like, I didn't even know what to say. Before I could even get I out of my voice, out of my mouth, my dad said, get in the car, drive home, and I'm going to follow you. I said, okay. I got myself in the car. The entire time I am driving to the apartment, I am shaking like a leaf. I'm like, when he sees this neighborhood, when he sees the place where I live, this man is going to lose his mind. I was right. As soon as we turned in, I got out the car and this man is going off. I can't believe you would move into a place out here. Do you see this place? Talking loud, y'all. This looked like drug dealer place. And I'm like, oh my God, this man gonna get me killed now. And he was just going on and on and on. As soon as we opened that door, why did my neighbor, the drug lord, open his door? I was done. I said to myself, this man is not going to let me live here. He is going to move me out tonight if he can, because he is steaming. And the man opened the door and he said, hey. And my dad looked at him and my dad looked at me like, what the? You fill in the blank. And then the drug lord goes back in and shut the door. I go upstairs and my dad was like, pack your stuff because you're getting out of here. I am not going to let a child of mine stay here anymore. Get your stuff. Let's go. But I was like, they don't have anywhere to go. We got to stay here. And he was like, okay, all right. And he left. The next day, y'all, my dad was at the rental office. By the time I got to the rental office, my dad had cussed out everybody in that place. My daddy went off. He asked the man, why would you rent a place like that to a child? Are you kidding me? My dad was going in on the man. And he said, the little man, he said, well, I asked her, was she sure? He was like, she barely 21 years old. Are you kidding? My dad went in on him. Let's just say within a month, I was packed up and moved out because my dad was not having it. I hope you enjoyed that story. Y'all, I'm telling you that the first night, I have never been so scared in my life. Oh, but what I did forget to tell you, let me go back. When the guys was moving me out, my friend downstairs, the drug lord, he comes out as I'm moving downstairs and he said, oh, so you're moving out? And I said, yeah. He said, yeah, because I was surprised they let you move in here by yourself. And I said, why? He said, because the man that used to live in that apartment, somebody killed him in the apartment. I said, what? He said, yes, they went up there and they shot him and they killed him. I said, you didn't tell me this. It wasn't my place to tell you nothing. You rented the apartment. And then he went in and shut the door. I'm like, that's why the apartment, the man at the rental office asked me, was I sure? Because he knew somebody got killed in that apartment and he let me live in there. I thought to myself, I'm so glad my daddy cussed you out. I wish I had known, because I would have, excuse me, I would have cussed him out. I would have cussed you out with him. Why would you do that? Anyway, so the reason why it was haunted, because somebody got shot and killed in their apartment and nobody let me know. So again, I hope you enjoyed that story. I learned a lot from that experience. First of all, the man that was the landlord, he did look out for me. He really did, because he did call and he would check up on me. So I know God was with me the entire time. He allowed that man, that landlord, to, even though he was shady, he still looked out for me. Then he sent the big wigs in to pray all over the place and get whatever was in there. I tell you, the next person that move in there, they're going to have so much peace, because the big dogs, the intercessors, they ran everything out there. If there was an insect in the house, I believe they ran them out. He sent my dad, who loved his daughter, over to fight for me and get me out of that mess that I got myself in. So I know God was with me. So learning, don't do anything at the last minute, like trying to get an apartment that only you can afford, but forgetting about the surroundings and the feeling, the gut feeling, because God gives women that in what do they call it? Intuition. My intuition was flying, y'all, and I ignored it because I could only afford it. Well, thank you so much for listening to this story. If you have any comments or you want to share an experience, please feel free to leave it in the comments, and I'll try to read it on one of the other episodes. And don't forget to push the thumbs up, subscribe, like, and share. All right, friends, have an amazing day. Bye.